Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Timil and I am a spiritual advisor, a leadership coach, and a healing artist. Today we're going to be talking about Saturn retrograde, which basically starts now through November. And this is in the context of Saturn being in Pisces. I'm linking the article to that 3-year transit on my blog in the description. It's really good and it'll give you some extra context about all of the notes that I had. Did some automatic writing and some channeling for you. And so that's what we're going to get into now. And in the extended, we're going to go over how Saturn retrograde is going to be impacting you by sign. Okay, so let's get into it. If you resonate with what comes through, please like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to be experiencing is a lot of religious conversion and religious reversion. And I'll break the conversion and reversion down first by how they intersect, because some of the reversion is reaching back to ancestral lineages, what traditions may have been practiced in your bloodline before colonization, before one of your parents or grandparents converted to a different religion, things like that. So there may be some remembering or some reclamation happening. The reversion also taking place is for people who may have experienced some kind of spiritual expansion to where they were exposed to things that they were not previously exposed to in their childhood. They got greater awareness of something, and then they were exposed to or experienced something traumatic, whether it was in the new spiritual practice or not. Maybe it was just correlated, right? Like they experienced something traumatic and they did not have the tools or the capacity to use the new frameworks to support them. And so they go back to what's tried and true for them, because it feels safer, it feels more aligned with where they want to be during this incarnation or what have you, which is all fine and good. But what we also are going to be seeing with that religious reversion is a lot of extremism, a lot of dogma. And if you're here, more than likely you're a mystic and you're like, listen, there's many paths to God. There are many ways of experiencing God. So just be aware that that's happening and observe it. And unless it's a direct personal attack, my guidance is to resist the urge to defend yourself or to tell them why it is that they are wrong. One, because it drains your energy, and that's a form of parasitism, which we're going to get into later. But also, you're then mirroring, in some cases, the same thing that they're doing, which is trying to convince, trying to coerce, etc. So the other part of conversion is spiritual initiations. And so those of you already on a spiritual path, you may be being taken to a different level or role or responsibility within your spiritual practice. So we're going to see a lot of that. And that doesn't just take place, these initiations, as it was coming to me, in the role of traditional practices or spiritual practices, but also in work. So it could be that you are now going to be a manager, you're now going to be a director, you're now going to be a nurse, or like you've been in school and now you're actually going to be putting that knowledge into practice. And so there's a lot of character development now at this time and a lot of focus on integrity, so that whatever you create will actually experience success and impact. And so the line that they actually told me was character and integrity expand whatever is created. And so this isn't just about being a good person. It's what are the characteristics and the character traits that I want to integrate into my life so that I can be the most aligned version of this X role. because there is a graduation of sorts into new roles. And as you define that for yourself, you're also going to be honestly reworking your entire lifestyle in many cases, because there's new practices being put into place, new structures, new systems, and new adaptation for your evolution. And so your routines and your rituals are going to have to shift up. Your daily bread is what I hear, but like your meals, your times, because things are about to become not necessarily more active. For many of us that may be the case, but more focused. And there is going to be an intense focus in this time of initiation. And so the need for boundaries is heightened to maintain composure during initiation, Spirit is saying. And so remember, boundaries are internally produced. We have to create the boundaries. There's no, sometimes there's like common sense boundaries that, you know, let me give one. I don't even want to say one, because I don't want to, you know, name something that somebody has done like, oh, I didn't know, because honestly, it depends, right? But okay, you don't show up to nobody's house without calling first. I'll say that one. That's maybe a rule, but it's not necessarily a boundary. A boundary is something that we say we're not going to do or we don't allow, okay? So your boundaries are going to shift, and they're going to look and have to look maybe not 180 from what they look like yesterday, but they are going to have to change a lot to protect the process of what's happening. Also, I'm jumping around on my notes. I recorded this already and it got corrupted, so I'm trying to like not necessarily recreate what I said before, but remember some of the good things that did come through. Okay, so there is going to be a lot of exposure for abuse of power, particularly in religious and spiritual institutions, but generally. And I believe that through that exposure, that is why so many of the initiations are taking place, because it's going to make room for elevation for those who are of good character and who have integrity. And so you're being prepared for not even necessarily elevation, while it can be that, actually promotion, higher pay, and things of that nature, more responsibility, but also just role shifts, whether it's horizontal moves, you know, or whatever. It doesn't necessarily have to be advancement in the way that we think of it, but it is initiation into something new and something different. Emotionally, we're going to be experiencing a lot of self-forgiveness, because there's going to be so much room made to purge shame, to purge grief. We talked about that a little bit in the last videos. But as this is happening, what I heard is there's going to be a clearing or a purging of parasitism, but also a purification of the internal systems, bodily adjustments for the integration of new spiritual energies. So we're going to be getting a lot of support from the realms, from the heavenly realms, from the cosmic courts, from your spiritual teams, whatever. There is a portal of purification open for us to be able to release old karmic responsibilities, self-forgiveness, and it's through the lesson learned that karma is also cleared. And so you do not actually have to repeat that karma now that you understand fully how it is that you're supposed to operate in integrity. And so that is kind of the infrastructure of what's taking place, of deep karmic release. Okay. So loss of desire or bodily rejection of certain vices or people is part of what happens after that spiritual purification and the internal systems takes place. You're actually rearranging almost your auric field, and things just don't feel like they're just not a fit anymore. And so somebody that and it's not necessarily healthy relationships that are automatically going to be like, oh no. These are relationships where maybe there was really like either a power struggle, or the desire to make it work was there, but just you just realize like it is not worth, it is not the way you want to choose to spend your energies in building. It is no longer a part of what you're, the contract. And so there's a mutual, in most of the cases they show me, a mutual agreed upon release of the contract. In fewer cases, one person is going to be completely oblivious. They're not going to understand what happened. And then in even fewer cases, both people are going to just continue to pretend that everything is okay. And what will happen during that, there will be an enhanced magnetism of like, I can't resist you, even though I know that it's wrong. And during that, those coming together, there's going to be moments of explosion and things are going to be said. And it won't always be a good magnetism. It'll be like you keep getting into arguments, or like the same topic keeps coming up, and finally you say what it is that you've been trying not to say, or they say what it is, but it's said in such a way that like the spell is broken. There is no more rose-colored glasses. There is more, and it's just very clear what direction needs to be gone in. So with the purging of parasitism, it is not just the consciousness of the way that we or people can attach to others. It is physical parasites. And so this is going to be a really supportive time to do detoxes of not the entire time where Saturn is retrograde, but picking a 30-day period within that time frame will be really supportive of purging those things, because they did show me a midsection in the torso and talked about the digestive system during this automatic channeling. But the consciousness of parasitism, or like what people might call energy vampires or non-mutual relationships, they kind of explain to me the consciousness underneath, because of course we talk about it as a negative, and then we also talk about it as something that we don't do, right? Because we're awakened and all of that. But the way that it works is being basically attracted to someone for not even necessarily what they can do for you, but for the generative nature of their energy and what they are connected to through their own spiritual practices, through their source, through their ashe, through their ancestral blessings, all these things. And we see it and we feel it and we know that it's something that is beneficial unconsciously. And we're like, oh, I want that. Oh, I like you. And you're attracted to these things. But it's really not actually about the person. There is no desire to want to know the person. There is no curiosity about the person. And it's almost just like this, give me the word, spirit. This force field effect. And as you're drawn to it through that awe, if there is no surrender to your own spirit around, what am I learning here? Or like the curiosity, should I be learning here? Like, is this a person that I should be working with in this particular capacity or whatever? There's just this desire to consume in a way. And so those behaviors are going to get broken down as well. And it's just not going to be allowed for from either side. I believe there's a healing of that type of consciousness, not for everybody, but especially for people with Piscean placements, wherever it is in your life that people seem to just come in and try to absorb certain things. There's a stronger layer, something is strengthened within the auric field to prevent that from happening to you forevermore, I heard. So with that, there's also going to be a more nuanced breakdown in media by professionals and practitioners about the causes and roots of popularized disordered personality traits. We know the big ones that get talked about: narcissistic personality disorder, narcissistic traits, which we all have on some spectrum, BPD, borderline personality disorder, and then codependency. And so there's going to be a shift to actually talking about the origin of trauma, the point of origin of the original trauma, and actually how to heal. And for many of you who are experiencing spiritual initiations that are healers, you are specifically being called to focus on how it is possible for people to reconnect to their heart and heal those inner child things. And if you are not teaching and practicing or sharing in a way that empowers people, you're being cut off from your ability to teach. That is something that I wrote about in the blog. And that cut off is going to, it could look like a variety of things. However, it's like, but if you are not empowering people to actually heal the source of their trauma, if you are keeping people in cycles of need and dependency, you are being either removed completely from your position, or you are being initiated into a new way of understanding of how to deliver your modalities. So you may be starting to get downloads, and maybe it's not like you're doing it. You may have an epiphany or an awakening of like, oh no, this isn't good. This is keeping people hooked in a way that I don't want people to be hooked into my energy. And I don't actually know if this is helpful, or maybe it was at a time, but this particular group of people in the soul group need new lessons, or spirit is calling for me to move in a different way. So you may see a lot of the spiritual practitioners that shift up their services, offer up new services, and that could be across industries because there is a initiation into new roles. And finally, the purification of internal systems, new structures, new adaptation for your evolution. This is also looking like pieces of the puzzle shifting in the soul group. What came to me in the previous video that was lost was that there's a reorientation around who is in the soul family. And so avoid, as you're in this initiation process, excuse me, the energy is really strong. Avoid agreeing to too deep of a responsibility, I'm hearing, before this process is over, because things are going to shift. And if you try to jump too far into the future, you might miss the exposure or the, how do you say, spirit? The revelation, I'm hearing. You may miss the revelation. And so this is kind of a season of consecration as you kind of watch the way that people are organically moving, not in a monitoring way, but as it comes up for you to observe. And as you observe it, you release it, because we are less and less attached. One of the things that came here is rapid release of all energetic and emotional attachments. And so it's not that you're resetting and that you're a blank slate. It's that you are becoming more primed for possibilities that are not connected to old timelines and the old karma that you are releasing. So that is it. I'm going to reshuffle because I'm not going to read you the card that came from that was old energy. From the Threads of Fate Oracle Shadow Edition that I like to use during retrograde periods, which is also reminding me that they're very similar to Mercury retrograde, which we will have more. There's going to be opportunities for you to clear your conscience, or people are going to be trying to clear their conscience when it comes to you. That doesn't mean you have to reconcile, but it is a time of release. And so those things may happen. The Magi, bottom of the deck, is power. The Magi indicates a period where you need to look deeper. It asks you to examine what you think you know and then keep going. Throughout our lives, we build an infrastructure of beliefs that allow us to navigate life, but so often this system is built on top of a shaky foundation or out of weak materials. In other words, it is a time to question that which you have never noticed. What beliefs inform your decisions, passions, and ambition? The Magi is a seer of illusion, and in turn, they are able to cut through the fog and get to work. The Magi may see the world similar to a mirrored funhouse. They see the core of each experience and are able to acknowledge how many different realities exist in a single moment. Being able to see these many realities is a gift. It teaches us to be less attached to a single road, but instead see where all the roads meet. If we are courageous enough to see and be open to our life unfolding along any of the various roads, we invite a magic that few get to experience. And this is what I was saying about not necessarily attaching ourselves to any one particular path because things are still taking shape. Even a balanced Magi can frustrate people. They have some trickster energy in that they can see the bigger picture and may know the answer, but they will present the information to you in a way that may spin your head. They are gifted with words, and everything they say can have multiple meanings. When Magi is unbalanced, they can be very manipulative and self-seeking. They may talk down to others as they believe themselves to be greater and more knowledgeable. Rather than present information meant to challenge others in the expectation that it will ultimately be empowering, the unbalanced Magi will present information in a way that is meant to make the other person feel small. In fact, they may even enjoy the fact that others don't understand, and that is the energy that particularly egoic energy, especially when it comes to like spiritual knowledge and wisdom, is being chin checked really, really hard in the retrograde. So tread carefully. Tread carefully. All right, this message continues in the extended. We're going to talk about what Saturn retrograde is going to look like and be teaching each particular sign. So I would love for you to join us over there. All right.